Hey Quentin, how's it going?
Good. How are you doing, Brandon? And welcome to all of our listeners to our second episode of the 20s generation. Who knew that we would get this far? We just finished recording actually the interview that you're about to hear, but it's been an interesting morning. A lot of interesting things were said in the podcast episode because either everyone's about to go to sleep or they just woke up. And, this is one of the difficult things about running a podcast when the hosts live in completely different time zones, indeed in like completely different sides of the planet, and the guests are exactly the same. I only had half an hour of sleep before this, so I'm in tip-top shape.
It seems like a recurring trend among us 20 somethings. Definitely a chronically sleep deprived generation. But yeah, it was a fun conversation, and I think we sort of got to learn a lot more, right, about how entrepreneurship and how the entrepreneurial journey works across both sides of the Pacific, both from a Southeast Asian perspective as well as a Silicon Valley perspective. So that was a lot of fun. But
Yeah.
Quentin, do you want to maybe share a bit more about why we actually embarked upon this conversation, following on from our previous conversation about the struggles and the challenges of youth and of making music with Strawberry Generation?
Yeah, so as you can probably tell, the theme of today's conversation with our guests is youth and entrepreneurship. And actually, the conversation focused a lot on what's the process of being an entrepreneur? How did these four different people from different countries embark on this entrepreneurial journey and decide to give up a lot of other opportunities to take risks and pursue ventures and initiatives that could fail. And Brandon and I were talking about this actually when we were planning this podcast episode. Not only do we have a lot of friends from college who are entrepreneurial minded, but actually some of our friends have disappeared even from college because they went off to do a startup. And this is, I think, a stereotype of a lot of people have about people in their 20s, is that people in their 20s are particularly suited to entrepreneurship. They're particularly drawn to the risks and the danger and the rewards involved. But beyond cliches, what does it actually take to become an entrepreneur, and what does it involve? What sort of communities are we building, and sort of what different contexts and problems are youth entrepreneurs facing? And I think our conversation really did, provoke some really interesting thought about all of those questions. I don't know. What do you think, Brandon?
Along those same lines, and yes, I think you captured the spirit of this conversation, which was so fascinating. That being about this tremendous energy and opportunity and spontaneity, but also a lot of the challenge and the struggle that goes behind this inherently bold decision to, as Nancy put it, create something out of nothing, and to be able to find that purpose and that calling to create a whole new product, a whole new service for a whole new market, and to put your name to that. And I have to laud the tremendous energy, I think, the ambition of our young speakers today in really sort of putting the start of their life on the line, even as they went to chase those dreams. And for me, at least, it sort of connected back to what Strawberry Generation was doing, and really taking this bold leap of faith toward pursuing what mattered to them, what
Mhm.
spoke to them, and dealing with all of the challenges and the obstacles that come with that, with an incredible amount of energy, spontaneity, good humor, and ingenuity. And so it was definitely a fascinating conversation.
Another thing that I think was really similar to our Strawberry Generation conversation was last episode we talked to Luke, who's from Singapore, and Val, who's from the United States. And this episode we also have a group of entrepreneurs from Southeast Asia, and we have an entrepreneur who's working at a startup in Silicon Valley. And so obviously those contexts are very different, but it's kind of I mean, obviously this we said in the very first episode, a lot of the interviewees that we're going to have on this podcast are from our own networks. And it just so happened that Brown University, the university that both of us went to, is one of the host locations for the Young Southeast Asian Leadership Initiative, or YSEALI, which is a US Department of State sort of program for up-and-coming rising youth leaders in Southeast Asia. And so we actually got to know the people from YNOT, who you'll hear about later, through that program. But it's also really interesting because, as you'll hear in the interview, obviously the environment, the startup environment, the entrepreneurship environment in Silicon Valley is very different from that of Southeast Asia. And I think you seem to have some thoughts about this. I remember, Brandon, when we were talking about planning this episode.
Yes, and I think it's fascinating to see what's going on in Southeast Asia as an innovation ecosystem, because as our friends from YNOT have just shared, it's certainly, I think, that the next frontier of innovation-driven growth, even as the American and European innovation ecosystems are starting to perhaps slow in pace a little bit, still remaining very vibrant as ecosystems, but certainly becoming a bit more mature. I think Southeast Asia is certainly where a lot of energy is being devoted toward. And I think the diversity of countries in Southeast Asia also makes for a number of fascinating problems and challenges that entrepreneurs will be able to tackle. But clearly the road ahead for these Southeast Asian entrepreneurs remains a long one, given the scale of the challenges that they're about to face. So it'll definitely be interesting to see where YNOT is headed next. And speaking of where we're headed next, Quentin, do you want to give our listeners a preview of what is to come in the podcast?
Yeah. So in the podcast, you're going to hear from YNOT. You're going to hear from Chris Chen. We kind of introduced them actually at the very beginning of the interview. So why don't we just jump into the interview right now? So here's our interview with YNOT and Chris Chen. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 20s generation. Today, we're delighted to have with us James Satipakorn, Jimmy Gunawan, and Tung Tran, or Nancy, of the YOUnified Network of Talents, as well as Chris Chen of Vanta. So just to give a quick introduction to these different groups here, YOUnified Network of Talents, or YNOT, is a nonprofit social enterprise started by academic fellows from the Young Southeast Asian Leaders Initiative, or YSEALI, and aims to connect youth in Southeast Asia to collaborate on key challenges in their communities. And as for Vanta, Vanta is a Y Combinator startup that provides security in a box for tech companies through a suite of simple, effective, and easy to deploy cybersecurity tools. Wow, such an interesting suite of initiatives and companies that we have represented here today. But obviously that's a very formal introduction to what YNOT and Vanta is about. But we would actually like to know more about your stories. So let's start with your stories for today's podcast, and maybe we can start with YNOT. James, Jimmy, and Nancy, welcome. Can you tell us a little bit more about who you are, how you met, and what YNOT is about?
Okay. Hello. So yeah, we are YNOT. So basically, we are a group of people who were selected by U.S. Embassy on each countries on Southeast Asian to go abroad to Brown universities to study about social entrepreneurship. So we all have our own project that we are doing in our own countries. And when we go back from US and the COVID situation coming, so we asked our team like, hey guys, we should do something together. Like we have a friend from all across Southeast Asia and US, so maybe we can do something together. So we formed YNOT, so we can do an activities or anything that can help youth people around the world together.
So James and Jimmy were both YSEALI alumni. So they were both fellows who went on this program to Brown University to study social entrepreneurship. And I myself, I am a Brown University student, and I was hired by the Square Center as a cultural ambassador. And my job was to host these YSEALI fellows when they were at Brown. And that's how I get to know them. And like Jem said, once the fellows returned home to their home country after their fellowship was over, that was around when COVID-19 starts picking up really fast. So we all stayed at home and we were just stuck to our laptop that's when James suggested the idea of, how about let's do something together now that we have all this network across the ocean. And that's how we started. We were just a group of around, I guess, 5 people from different corners of the world wanting to create something out of the network or the friendship that we have already had.
Yeah, hi, I'm Jimmy. I'm also from YNOT. I'm originally from Indonesia. If I can tell you about why we are here today, I think we need to first thank YSEALI. That's how I firstly met with Jim. And I was part of YSEALI Academic Fellowship for 2019. And previously, I actually struggling to get accepted to this program like 5 times. And in 2019, like it was like my life chance to apply to this program. And I joined YSEALI. And yeah, after this program and some of us from the alumni, like we come together and decided to create the network that's come from YSEALI alumni with also Nancy and some of the people right now who also joined in Why Not.
Thanks, James, Jimmy, and Nancy. It's great to hear your stories and how Why Not was really born out of your common passions from all the different backgrounds that you're coming from. Could you tell us a bit more about the profile of the other Why Not members and how many people there are in Why Not currently?
So currently, Why Not has 42 members. Why Not started off with the founding team of around 9 members. And except for myself, everyone else have full-time jobs. And they range from the fashion industry to agriculture, to finance, to incubator, to research. These are like a variety of jobs. But the one common thing is that all these co-founding members have had a lot of social projects experience. They've run a lot of social projects in the past on their own or with the universities or with other organizations. And then once we expand this organization to other non-YSEALI members to join, that's when we start recruiting just any members at all who want to create an impact on the Southeast Asian youth population. And we recruit people from United States universities, Southeast Asian universities. They can major in all sorts of fields like finance, biology, chemistry, marketing. We have someone from design with us. We have computer science with us. So it's almost unlimited. There's not a particular portfolio that we're looking for, but more on the common ground of interest on, topics in Southeast Asia.
And it's incredible how there's such a spirit of unity amid the diversity of backgrounds by which everyone comes from. Moving over to Chris, tell us a bit more about your background and journey to Vanta.
Hi everyone, this is Chris. Yeah, happy to chat a little bit about where I sort of am now and how I got there. And so, or I'll give the high level overview. I'll give the abridged version first. But yeah, when I was a student at Brown, I was really, really fortunate to find something that I was really, really happy to study, which was computer science. I think computer science and just like coding fundamentally is just such a versatile toolkit. I really think that it's the most incredible sort of tool for the 21st century in terms of just being able to express your creativity and just create the things that you are excited about and want to see in the world. And so I guess like with that in mind, like that's really what I wanted to set out and do, as soon as I felt like I had the sort of skills to go ahead and do that. And so during my time at Brown, I would work on a few sort of small projects with friends, create a company and try to raise money and do all of these sort of fun things. But I think like what I came to the conclusion of was that I didn't quite have the skills and have it really, really crystallized in terms of what it took to exactly, go from, 0 to hero. And so after I graduated, after interning at, a few different big tech companies, I think like I really found that the place that I needed to be where there were the people who had sort of just made that leap of creating something from nothing and really surrounding myself with those people where they were making those decisions where they were actively sort of talking about these things that really shapes, the future direction of a company, and where I could be in the same room where those were happening. And so the place where I really found that, was at another startup. And so, when I was looking for startups specifically, then I was really, really lucky to find Vanta, where I was just so excited about the people. I was really excited by the founding team and the early engineers. And I really felt like it was a place where, you know, even if, everything crashed and burned within 2 years, like I would have an awesome time and really be able to exactly gain sort of a new set of skills to really understand what it means to, really build something. And so that's how I found myself at Vanta. And yeah, now it's been a little over a year, which has been super exciting.
That's a really cool story, Chris. And it really made me think, actually, like the things that Dung, Jimmy, and James were talking about how they started YNOT as well during the pandemic. It's kind of interesting to see how all of you came to entrepreneurship, came to all of these different initiatives because it was sort of a challenge, a risk that you took. And I'm wondering, actually, so we're having this podcast episode because we're really interested in youth and entrepreneurship, right? So this is the theme of today's episode. And in particular, like, why all of you chose this, right? Because as Chris was mentioning, and I'm sure that Nancy, James, and Jimmy have their own stories about this, right? There are many other paths that you can take in life, and entrepreneurship seems like a much more difficult path. So how did you get involved in your entrepreneurial journeys, and why did you choose to go down your current road?
So myself, like, I always dream about being rich. Like, I want to be, I want to help people and also being rich to do that. Yeah. So I have an experience about selling something since I was in a primary school, that I sell a candy in my school. Yeah, since I was just 9 years old. Yeah, but yeah, when I got into the universities, I studied a bachelor of business, business administration, about management. So I was a bit like, I feel like, hey, we are studying business, but no one here really do a business. They just come to study about business, go home, and just like that. No one doing any business here. So I think, like, oh, I have to start something. So I found a club called KU Startup Club. Yeah, my university is Kasetsat University, so it's KU. So yeah, so I named it KU Startup with my friend, because in that time, like, so many people want to be an entrepreneur, but we cannot find each other. It's like, I don't want to do it alone. I don't want to do just selling a candy again. I want to do something more. So yeah, I found a club. So we have 15 faculty in my universities, and every single faculty, everyone from every faculty joining our club. Like, I remember, like, the second year we have like 600 people in my club, and we have like 20 teams, have a business plan, go pitching, find new funding, do a real business, like 3 teams, including myself, trying to do business. I've been start a startup for a few times. So I see that there's a very low chance of another people from another universities. Like my university, we have 15 faculty, but some universities, they just have like 4, 3. They don't even have a business, or some of them don't have engineer. So when I graduated, I found an association called Young Entrepreneur Assembly Hub Association, so YAY Association. So my association is, we try to incubate students who want to be entrepreneurs of Thailand. So whatever you study, whatever in university, which university, you can join, find your teammates. You can, even you don't know anything, you can start by zero. Learning about startup with our event, find your team here, do your business plan, go find funding with us. That's what we do in YAY Association. So we've been doing it for like 5 years already. We registered on 2018 with the government, and right now, it's a second year of register. So we grow bigger every year. So right now we even have a project on each side of countries. We go to north, south, northeast. yeah, that's what I'm doing. Yes, it's been a long story. Yeah, and then U.S. Embassy accept me to go to YSEALI Brown. Yeah, and that's how I met Nancy and Jimmy and everyone. And we start Why Not together by the feeling that every time I think back at Brown, it's always the happiness of feeling so happy. So it's like, yeah, it's always been my inspiration for a few months before I start Why Not, because I really miss my friend that we used to be at Brown together. Yeah. So yeah, that's why I created. Also, yeah, I want to work with my friend. Our organization is not just based on the problem that we want to solve, but it's based on we are like family, so we want to work together.
Thanks, James. Thank you for saying that Brown is a happy university. I sometimes like need reminding that Brown is a happy university. um,
I think in
guess,
particular these days.
I know. That's so true. I guess I'll give my take on it. I think the question was, what's your journey to this entire entrepreneurship, I guess. So out of everyone here, I am still in school. I think I'm the only one who's still in school, and because of that, I do have a little bit of a different take on why I did embark on this journey in the first place. And it was that mindset that I have as a 20 years old, that, 20 years old is probably the only time that I should start something that's completely out of the ordinary, and perhaps taking on a startup and starting something new, like having, starting on an entrepreneur, creating something out of nothing. That saying that Chris already has kind of like talked about a little bit in the beginning. Yeah, that ability to create something out of nothing, I think it's an amazing skill that not many people get to practice at such an early stage in their life. And when we're younger, we don't have that many responsibilities attached to us. So perhaps this is the only time that we get to do all these crazy things without paying a significant price. If ever, projects or startup or entrepreneurs like this ever go south. So I think that's that mindset, that ability to to challenge myself. Perhaps this is a time for me to do something crazy for once, and then we'll see where it goes. In terms of that's kind of my mindset. But sometimes you have these like crazy ideas, but you never like jump started it. For me, it was that I found similarities between scientific research process and like startup. So in a startup, you do your research, you do your background research, you do your you do your market research, you study your clients, all of that, and then in the end you produce a product. In science, it's very similar. You also go through a whole bunch of research in order to come to some sort of hypothetical conclusion, or some sort of ideas that you have in order to investigate further. So this research process is almost similar across the field of science, which I'm studying, and startup or entrepreneurship. And that's I found comforting in that, and that's how I started, or like just agree to go on this journey together with James and Jimmy.
Yeah, and maybe it's worth mentioning, Nancy, I guess. What do you study at Brown?
I study biology I'm on the immunology track. Yeah, that's what I study. And most of my time I do focus on researching pediatric oncology related topics. Yep, that's my thing.
Okay, for me, I think previously I was thinking that I was an entrepreneur by accident, but no longer having that term anymore. Because um, to give you a little bit about my background, I took English in my bachelor degree, and it was really damn hard to find people that have the same interest, like to go beyond than just learning English. And my passion at that time is teaching kids in remote areas, and I did it many times. And I also do a lot of part-time jobs teaching many students in my city about English. And yeah, I found out that there is this junior of mine in faculty, and he came out to me like, hey, there is this one typical TAP program in Singapore, which is called Young Social Entrepreneurship in Singapore. I know nothing about social entrepreneurship. I think at the time it was 2015. I just tried to do it at the time, and I was so excited. Like the 4 day workshop in Singapore was really life changing, and it was really changed my mind about entrepreneurship, particularly about social entrepreneurship. The fact that I previously managed my time to teach many kids in remote areas, now like I can see something else. I see that I recognize opportunities that I can do more than just teaching, which is creating a platform where many students can connect to local education institutions. And that's how I started my startup right now, which is Kampung Course, especially helping many local education institution in the city where not many people still really make the most of the use of technology, and they just like already satisfied with the status quo, with the stereotype. And it's really hard at first to change their mind and transform the way they educate people. But as the time goes, I started to realize that entrepreneurship is something that, for me, it's a journey. It's not like only one time in life, but like we are doing it every single day. Like I talk to the people from one event to another, and I am so glad I'm part of YSEALI as well. It's like I know that there is similar situation like this happen in different countries in Southeast Asia, and because of that, like it really drives me crazy, especially my passion in doing this entrepreneurship growth speaker. When I meet people like they do the same thing in education, and they also create an impact to the society, not just economically, but also in a way that they can do whatever they can without asking something in return. It really makes me think that I think this is really my passion. So I think uh, because of that, it sometimes also makes me realize that there is no excuse for me to join YNOT. There is no excuse for me to create something, even though right now like we have so many talents during this time. And yeah, um, after I graduate, I actually started to join with startup companies as well, because I realized that I don't have many skills in, for example, like digital marketing and stuff. And I like to go extra mile. So I started to experience in one startup company and then the other one, and now I created my own. And I think that the way that I try to be more open in learning opportunities that comes in any way, not only in community but also in company, it really shaped who I am today. And that's something that I want to contribute more now, which is I'm currently also becoming incubation manager in the university center. So I think that I can say that no, I'm not like entrepreneur by accident, but like I'm literally doing it for myself, but also for the people that needed my skills or my experience too.
Oh my gosh, there was so many like nuggets there. They're so juicy. That is, yeah, I think like all of those things, like Jimmy, you just mentioned, and then absolutely, from Nancy and James, your stories, like are so many of the things that, I've sort of come to see and learn, in my own sort of story. I think my favorite thing that you mentioned, Jimmy, in particular, was sort of around, like who exactly like are these entrepreneurs in the sort of sense of, I actually think that like the people who sort of call themselves entrepreneurs are least often, the people who are really, really, doing, I think, like what is in the spirit of entrepreneurship. And what is that, I think, is seeing opportunities and problems in the world, and then two, trying to tackle them. I think that's fundamentally, what, that spirit is about. I think like when people are focused on sort of the idea of entrepreneurship or like being their own boss, like those are some of the least interesting people that I find, is like when it's like really like, they don't want to be a part of the system. That's sort of like, you know, the bad taste sort of entrepreneurship that I think is really, really popular and really, really sort of sad to see, honestly, in at least today's world and in Silicon Valley. And, you know, and I think what a lot of people sort of glamorize entrepreneurship as. And so I guess like for myself, yeah, like I think like my own sort of, you know, journey and path, when I think back on it, like so much of it is not intentional. So much of it is exactly like you said, you know, I'm an entrepreneur by accident, or maybe, you know, if we don't like that word, I'm a problem solver by accident, something like that. And yeah, I think like every single person, you know, who does these sorts of things has their two stories. I think like one is like my crafted, calculated persona of why every single thing in my entire life exactly led me to this moment. And like while that is absolutely true, I think like so much so so much less often is that, you know, a calculated sort of strategic path, and more often it is very much just sort of, you know, meandering down, you know, one road and then another, and then you reach a dead end and you turn around. And yeah, and so I think it's super special just to sort of hear. I see you all sort of nodding on Zoom. I know we're like podcasting, but that's really what it's about, is like really like meandering down the different paths just to see like that there's something that you have to be a part of. And like um yeah, I think like, you know, I already shared a little bit about sort of my own sort of, you know, college to, you know, Vanta sort of path. But I think like the one extra thing just to mention is, I think like when it came down to it, you know, like I don't think that I set out, you know, at the beginning of college to say, you know, I was going to join a startup after, or I wanted to like create a company while I was in college, or try to do that and fail. Definitely did not plan the failing part. But I think like what I've really sort of learned about myself, I think the best part of the entrepreneurship, or just like this whole path, is like you just sort of discover yourself. You understand what's important to you, and like if you do that at every single corner, I think like what you find is that it's really, really obvious to not join Facebook. It's really, really obvious to not just, you know, go to, you know, exactly like I think Jimmy mentioned again, is like just live in the status quo. And so, you know, I think like that's been the biggest thing for me since college, is just really discovering myself, you know, introspecting, finding new experiences and trying them. And that makes it so clear to me that, you know, there is something in the world that I don't see that I want to be a part of. And I want to be a part of creating that. In whatever ways that I can. And so that's sort of where I am now in terms of just, you know, gathering those skills to be able to, you know, seize that opportunity when I see it.
Thank you all for sharing about your journeys and the challenges and risks and different paths along those journeys. And I think one absolutely fascinating thread that I gathered from all of this is that entrepreneurship to a large extent doesn't happen alone. I mean, YNOT is clearly proof of that. And I really resonated with what James said, you know, about how selling candy is great, but you know, he doesn't want to do it alone, you know, and in the same way, Chris, when we talk about this iterative collective process of problem solving, it isn't really that one person with that one idea that's going to save the world. But you know, entrepreneurship seems to be really something out of a team sport. And yet in this team-based dynamic of entrepreneurship, I do get the sense that a key challenge is the difficulty of finding the right mentors, communities, and resources to be able to enable your experimentation and your entrepreneurial endeavors. I think I resonated a lot with what Jimmy said about how it was really hard to find like-minded people within his English course that were able to drive these passions forward. So I wanted to talk to you guys a bit more about how the culture of mentorship and teamwork looks like in your communities. What do you look for? What do you build in your teams? What does it look like to be able to work together?
Okay. Yeah, okay, I can go on first. So in my team, yeah, when I was in the universities, I used to be a guy who only care about the result of the project, like how many people I can impact, how things change. Yeah, I used to be the guy like that. But when I work for a while, I start to think about, if my team doesn't happy with our project, if I can't even save my own team, how does it impact to another people? So I start to care about my own team. Like, yeah, it's not just about impact to other people, but it's also about have an impact to our own team, that we can be a family, we can develop ourselves together, not just alone on individual. Yeah, we can go together and feel safe that we have each other. That's the thing, that the fundamental before you start anything, you need to have a strong team before that. And that's what look like in my association, that we try to work as a family, not as a team who register to work on this project together. No, we are always be together. Even we finish this project, we will do it again in some way in another project. Yeah, that's how it feel like in my association.
That's awesome. And I think it's incredibly inspiring to hear, 20-year-olds really coming together as a strong team, building a family. And I wanted to turn the spotlight over to Chris, actually, and to find out a bit more about Vanta's own team dynamic. What does it look like to be able to work at Vanta and to be part of the Vanta family?
Yeah, totally. I can talk about Vanta, um, and we can start from there. I think like everyone sort of who has been a part of a startup, or trying to just create their own ideas together, has really seen that there are a lot of communities that you need to be a part of in order to succeed. It's not just the people at your company. And so I guess like starting with Vanta specifically, I think like what I've really found is that the small company startup experience is something so special. It's so incredibly unique that you don't get anywhere else, when you know you don't just have this feeling where everybody sort of fits in the room, fits in the same room. And yeah, and like that was one of the biggest reasons that I wanted to be a part of Vanta. I think like when you're building something from nothing, fundamentally it's a scary and new process that you can't just sort of you know read on medium.com, like this is what you do, 1 2 3, and then you're set. And so you have to be really really close. You have to be really really, most importantly, trusting of everyone else. And three, you really, really have to believe. And that's the only way you can make it through sort of, we don't really know what we're doing, but we're going to find out. And like, how do you have that conviction? Is you believe in the people around you, because it's not something that you can just do by yourself. And so, yeah. And so like, to be honest, like it has changed a lot as we've grown from 10 people to like 30 something people. Um, but like from the beginning, like just like being able to trust in each other, that like if I make a mistake today, you have my back. Or if I make a mistake today, I'll take ownership of it and I'll make that happen in terms of what it is and where we need to go, um, either way. And so um, it's just a really really incredible sort of intimate experience where you have that trust, that really deep trust, with everyone else, even if you don't, understand sales, or you don't understand the business development, part of it. For me as an engineer, is like we have these people and we're all working towards the same goal, even if that's not something that I necessarily see every day. Is that's something you feel and you tangibly, have when you just sit in the same room and you know exactly who those people are every day. So yeah, that's like, I think like the really special part, and really rare and not easy to find sort of piece.
Yeah, actually, I have like a why not related story on that topic of like friends and I guess team building and team spirit and all of that. So actually, why not? As every startup or every starting organization went through a little like bumpy phase, I guess, where a lot of like conflicts, not conflicts, but just a lot of discussions and disagreements between each other. And that was like that time was when I was also going through my final period. And so I was like, that's it, I'm out. Like, this is like ain't it anymore. Goodbye, James, you're on your own, you take care of this, I'm off. But then something that kind of like got me to stay was this was the fact that I couldn't leave my friends. I when I started this, right, I convinced people to join the project, and I convinced people to like hop on board to be part of YNOT, out of common interest and this conviction for helping Southeast Asia, blah blah blah. The kind of like the talk goes on and on and on, and I couldn't leave. I just couldn't leave because I'm like, I can't just like leave these people here, the people that I like literally talk into joining YNOT. And so that's what got me to stay. Like, thank God that did not cost me a C, but like, that was some tough time. And so like, it's a joke, not a joke, but like, like personally, I have a friend who's now part of YNOT. Her name is Catherine, and Catherine is my childhood friend. Like, we've known each other since 6. And so Catherine, she studies marketing and kind of like business marketing and all of that. And she goes to USC. Because of COVID-19, all the internships this summer got canceled. And then by chance, she called me and we're just like catching up. And then she was like telling me, Nancy, I'm so stressed about everything. All of my friends out here are having like amazing internships at like Facebook, Google, whatever. What other, consulting firms there are out there. And like, I should be like them. I should be having internships. I should be doing something, to build up my resume, but I have nothing to do. And I'm just so upset. And that's when I'm like, you know what? I will give you something to do this summer that will like blow your friends' minds away. Like, the things that you do this summer will like outcompete everyone else. You come back with such a cool, unique experience and kind of like set like a toolkit of like skill set that your other USC friends will be jealous of. And I think that was a promise I made to her in the beginning, when I convinced her to join YNOT. And when I myself was considering, I cannot do YNOT anymore, that promise really, it helped me back. It kind of like calmed me down. And then that was when I was able to be more collected and then find an alternative solution to whatever problem that was facing. But, there are moments that you want to quit. And there's like not a slogan, but there's a saying that I do really firmly believe by, is that you start off this entrepreneurship journey because you are passionate about something. That's what got you in the first place. What got you, what gets you stay is no longer these like abstract concept, but the kind of like intimate bonds and the realistic day-to-day interactions that you have with your team. That's valuable. And now that's something that we call living in the present or in the moment, because these are moments that you want to cherish and you want to kind of like continue build upon. And that's what I believe got me to stay and got me grounded. Now, what got me kind of like the drive, because you got in, you stay. What's the drive for you to move forward? And the drive to move forward is that team spirit, that special thing that you have with your teammates, with your family, like what James said. This feeling of you getting to build something together with the people that you like to spend so much time around, that's really special. So I think if I get to break it down into like 3 parts, what gets you into the door? Now that you're in the door, what make you sit and stay for a while? Now after that, what makes you start running again? And yeah, I think
Also, C's get degrees. That's the truth. But yeah, I think like we were chatting a little bit before we started recording, just around, I guess, like, I was chatting with Nancy and some of her, I guess, team members, including Catherine, earlier this week. And, we were chatting for a long time. And I think, Quentin, you asked like, oh, like, like why, did you want to chat for so long, or like what was sort of like that report? And like I think like you talking again here, Nancy, just like really reminds me again of sort of like this sort of awesome special energy that I think all of the people I've met from YNOT so far have, that I think really captures the spirit of sort of what it means to like be in in it together. and like and it's so important, like that's exactly like you said, like that's what keeps you going. I think like for myself, I have a pretty different experience, just speaking honestly, in terms of I think like what Vanta is and sort of where that camaraderie comes from. I think like it doesn't have to come from friendship. And actually I think like honestly, I think more realistically, in my own experiences in Silicon Valley, is like, friendship is not actually the strongest superpower, regardless of how much anime wants to, portray it as such. And so, yeah, so I think like, at Vanta, like, we don't necessarily have the same sort of like, I want to hang out with all these people all the time. There are lots of people that I um, would be really happy, staying as coworkers as. I mean, I'm really, really happy, with exactly who I work with, but not because like I think that they're my best friends. Um, and like, I think like having worked with, best friends and stuff like that, sure, everyone's tried it. It is amazing and can be the most frustrating thing. I remember, just like in college, I was working with on another project, and like when you don't find like your work styles meshing, in terms of who you are, it can become so hard to separate, like the work and not the work. It's like you see this person every day, like, hey, like, what's up? Like, what's going on? And then you like get down, and you're like, why didn't you do anything? Like, what is happening? And so um yeah, like, um yeah, not gonna mention any names, but yeah, the habits. And so yeah, Vanta, at least like for me, as like a more sort of like strictly sort of professional thing, is like at the same time, like, exactly, you don't have to be best friends, you don't have to hang out after work to be successful. I think like you just need to really care about exactly what it is that you're trying to create. And when that happens, you do stay after hours, you do want to talk about these things, outside of work. And yeah, and you do have exactly, that spirit to create something that's never been built before.
Yeah, that's for me. I definitely agree with Chris, James, and also Nancy. But to give you a little bit more about perspective, I think that when we are trying to create something, um, I'm always thinking about the people. I mean, these can be the one who destroy our innovation, or we can create something successful. And that's what I always try to keep in mind, especially when we are trying to build a culture. Remember that we are having different personalities. And I feel like sometimes when creating a project, a certain project, not only like a project team, but like when we are partnering with different organizations, it also takes time as well to understand about their style of work and how they direct this project into a specific objective. And something that somehow as an entrepreneur, I think that it is really important to, to be in the circle of the people where uh, they're not be afraid to be vulnerable, but at the same time, like they also be willing to open, like if there is a certain gap happen in the team that we need to keep in mind and understand that this kind of challenge will pass, and we need to also sometimes really going back to the why we want to create this. And I feel like as an entrepreneur, having a lot of opportunities to work with my team, besides making sure that we all know each other, which means that we have the trust. We need to be able to see other opportunities that, you know, try to lift up our company, not only in ourselves, but let's say like we join in incubation program. It's something that I feel it is really important to have a third party to give like a perspective about what we do as a team, or to give some of the suggestions that we might never ever heard before. So in this case, like really again going back to the team, going back to the people, like how we can really bring many different perspectives into one perspective that eventually uh, we have this similarity to work together, and we know that there is a risk happen there, but we also believe that we can do it together. And this is something that I feel I need to maintain this kind of strength within the team and the people, and also the skill and the connection that we are trying to do it over and over outside of our company.
I really enjoyed actually listening to all of, surprisingly, in some ways, very different sort of reactions to, what is community in an entrepreneurial context, and like how do people help each other and give each other sort of the resources, space, and feedback that you need as an entrepreneur, that you need in order to have that sort of problem solving process and think about how you're going to create things and deliver solutions and proceed. I guess as we're closing sort of our conversation, I wonder if we can just touch about those differences actually, because that's a fascinating thing that I'm not that familiar with, which is you talked about differences between say Vanta and YNOT in terms of like how community works maybe. Can you talk about the broader picture of Silicon Valley and Southeast Asia in terms of what's different or similar between those two environments for entrepreneurship? I know some of you might have some experience in both, but I was just really curious about sort of how you see entrepreneurship in your local context, in your local communities, and how that might be different.
I think it's not about a different of area, but it's about this is a different business. It's like why not is a non-profit. Like we can't we don't have to be hurry and yeah, make the KPI and a lot of things to be serious about. We can work as a friend because we are non-profit. But yeah, in terms of creating a real startup, when I do my real startup, it's very different. Yeah, we don't have to be a very lovely friend in a team. We have to focus about the profit. What we are doing, do we have a customer? How can we survive in this next few months? Yeah, there's a lot of different here. Yeah, so yeah, I don't think it's about the area that we are different right now.
I would like to differ on that. We are struggling hard to survive here too, even though we're nonprofit.
Yeah. So I guess like what you mentioned, James, I think you're exactly right. I think it's actually, a terrifying world out there. The world is scary. We have like capitalism, at least, in most parts of the world, or at least, some lived sort of market economy. And so, what that means is like, uh, it, I think like maybe more of what we're hearing about is like sort of the difference between why not, as a sort of community-based sort of organization versus like, I'm a for-profit, corporate machine. It's like I've seen this like tons of times already at Vanta, And it's absolutely terrifying. One day, you're talking about with my good coworker, I'm talking about his cat. He adopted this feral kitten, and he has this cat cam that he'll show me at work, and we're like, oh, like, wow, like, look at the cat cam, and we have it on your big screen. And then, like, literally the next Monday, coworker is not there anymore. And the way we present it is like, unfortunately, so and so is no longer with us. Definitely, feel free to schedule time with me, the big boss, afterwards, and we can talk about it. But that is the reality. At the same time, while you're there to be a part of something together and build something together, if you are not doing what the team needs you to do so that people can exactly trust you and believe in you and give you way more responsibility than you definitely deserve, at my level of sort of seniority, then you're fired. And that is also very much a part of what it means to exactly be creating something new. It's like you don't have sort of the bandwidth to not have those people along the way. And it sounds like that is just going to be true where no matter where you are, if you have to sort of make tough decisions to make sure that you are surviving. But one thing sort of I think like is fascinating about YNOT, and I think like what I'm hearing about all of your sort of entrepreneurship experiences is, I guess, like, I think like it is incredible sort of the cross-cultural sort of collaboration, and not only in geography, but like you said previously, I think like across different people who have different sort of languages, even though maybe English is like a predominant business language. I would love to learn about sort of, I guess, like, it seems like there is this camaraderie even across geographic borders, even across in a lot of ways cultural differences. How does that happen in Southeast Asia? Silicon Valley, it often feels like you have the same kind of person in the same kind of place, and if you're not in the same room with me, there's no way that we'll ever get anything done. And so do you have any stories to share about, I guess, like, how do you work together?
I think there is always be a problem in every organization, always coming, yeah. But the part that we believe is that there's a lot of organization in the world try to help youth people become entrepreneur, a lot of government project. But what I believe is, what is the better way than youth people inspire youth people? So like, do you want to believe old people telling you to become entrepreneur, or you want to see you see your friend try to do something and they might not succeed, but they have an experience and you want to do something too? So that's the way that we believe together. So I think the belief, the logic, a lot of things that we have in common help us get through every problem that we understand in the same way.
I guess to answer your question, Chris, one thing that really unites people from all across cultural differences or background is they're wanting to develop Southeast Asia. So this entire platform, right, is to help youth develop Southeast Asia. We look at the numbers and the population reports and everything. It is fact that Southeast Asia has a very big youthful population. The percentage of people in Southeast Asia who are under 30, it's rising every year, which means this now becomes an asset, a whole weapon of its own to develop the economy. And so the way that we kind of like go about it is that if we want to develop Southeast Asia as a whole, this set of people needs to be the people who needs to be empowered. And this idea of empowering the youth to then eventually become the main working force, these people will then eventually become, the main working force of Southeast Asia. Like, they will make it happen, or they will take Southeast Asia to the next level, if ever it's going to the next level. And so this wanting, this passion, this ambition, this desperation to see, Southeast Asian countries grow into a new whole platform, it's what united us. It's kind of, that's that mindset of, since we're not that strong, since we're growing, since we're still babies, let's stick together. And I think that's why we were, as YNOT, able to unite so many people from so many different countries.
I think for me is besides working on our own community, I think something that unites us in South Asia is about the awareness to taking a higher leadership. Like it's not only in our own community, but like especially during this COVID-19 pandemic, like everyone, like we all are feeling the same. But sometimes there is this sense of curiosity to get sort of understanding what happened with our brothers and sisters in our neighborhood countries, especially if we start to understand that Asian have Asian community and they have these three pillars, which is politics, social, and economy. And I think sometimes like we don't have to say that I'm from Indonesia, but hey, I'm actually Asian. To have that kind of awareness level, I think it takes a lot of bravery to not only think about ourselves in our own community, but as a youth leader, especially, I think we are forced to not only serve our country, but like Asian in general. And I think that when YNOT is coming in Southeast Asia, I think it really gives this sense of belonging, like people who sometimes feel afraid not to know how to do something in Asian, like they can be equipped with YNOT, and they don't know, they not only got a series of events that they can get to know about their people in different countries, but also like we give them like mentorship, and then we give them tools to develop their skills, meaning that we really understand that the future of Asia is actually from the youth itself.
And perhaps that's a great segue actually into our final topic for the podcast, which is the future. And so we've talked about how entrepreneurship is a pretty amazing journey of courage, of collaboration, of spontaneity and opportunity. And entrepreneurship is clearly, of the many things it's about, the future. And so I wanted to learn a bit more from all of you about what you see in your futures. I think in entrepreneurship, we often talk about moonshots. So I was hoping to get, a quick sort of 30-second sort of pitch from each of you in a roundtable as to what your own moonshots are.
Can we include Quentin and Brandon on this too?
Sure.
Sounds like a plan. And in alphabetical order, Chris, why not you start first since you're just raring to go?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, absolutely happy to talk about that. So I think I guess like a lot of the reasons why I'm here today, that I talked about already is, so that I can have the skills to exactly be a part of the opportunities that I see coming, that I just have to be a part of. And so I think for myself, my one sort of underlying truth in terms of what excites me, and what I love, to experience is, I think, growing other people, and seeing that happen and helping people really be a part of things that maybe they didn't think that they could be a part of. And then just take those passions and things that make them excited and turn those into, something that they actually do for themselves. And so, like that comes from just like, tutoring from a young age, doing sort of TA work, and just like honestly seeing all of the friends, all of the people who are here, Quentin and Brandon, just doing things that you care about. Like that is so special for me to see. And it's so tough to see that that is not possible for a lot of people. And so, in terms of where I want to go, what I want to be doing is just really creating a platform, that I think is technology enabled so that people can exactly pursue their passions and learn about their passions and grow their passions into things that they can do for their own livelihoods, at scale. And so, yeah, that's like my vague notion of what it is that I want to be a part of, is just how can I take technology and really turn that into something around shaping how we learn, how we grow, and how we build our careers from there.
Jimmy, I'm going to pass it to you now.
I will just still keep doing what I'm doing right now because I love it. And especially, I know that Indonesia takes 100 more to improve their education system. So that's why I feel like it's really exciting to enjoy the process of having different opportunities where I still can really gather different type of skills and opinions. But eventually, like I need to be much more brave to decide what things that I need to do with my team. And for me, like having the platform that I have right now, also getting more exposure with YNOT, it is something that I'm really excited to embark on this journey together, not only with my team, but with the YNOT people as well.
I guess we'll pass it over to James. Do you want to go?
I think what I want is I want to be a successful entrepreneur who can also inspire people to help people. So it's not just me impact people with my business, but it's me impact people to create a new thing, to create a new possibilities. Can be business, can be project, can be anything, and they can impact more people. So when you help someone, that means you can save everyone. So that person can also save another person. Yeah, that's what I believe and I want to be.
I think Nancy, you're the closer.
Okay. If you look at human history, from a, I guess, universe perspective, each individual is really nothing but like a particle, like a tiny, tiny particle that doesn't really matter much to, this lifelong history of like mankind. I guess maybe because I'm young, and maybe because it's in the morning, and maybe because I have not had coffee yet. I my inspiration is to be one of those particles that make some meaningful impacts to this kind of like, history of mankind. It doesn't, and when I say meaningful, or like when I say impactful, it doesn't have to be something big. It's just something that, on my scale, on my spectrum is meaningful and is significant. Maybe perhaps when I look back at it when I'm like 70, I'm like, dang, I really did something when I was 20. Yeah, so to really live the life. Well, I sound really old and I'm only 20. To live the life without regrets, and I think, and to inspire others to do the same. So yeah, I guess that's the closer for you.
No, we need Brandon and Quentin to share.
I'm
not close.
I'm gonna steal Nancy's thing. I think I can't really top that. I mean, we should have gone before Nancy. I think my moonshot is, Brandon and I started this podcast precisely to hear really cool stories from people in their 20s, like all of you, like all of your stories, and to hear about your passions and dreams and sort of the different paths and that you had to take and the challenges that you had to face. That's really cool. To me, I think I want as many people as possible to hear about those stories. And for me, that's my moonshot. And to get people talking about these sort of things across, boundaries of space and time. What about you, Brandon? Are we on the same page, or am I completely misreading why we started this project?
Precisely so, and I think you sort of captured the spirit of it. This is a platform, a moonshot, if you will, that we created to feature ordinary people doing extraordinary things and really taking up their passions and taking up a cause and building communities and incredible endeavors around that.
From one of the YNOT people, what is next for YNOT? What can you tell our listeners about, in the next 6 months? Go.
Okay, I can go. 30 seconds. YNOT is launching an app to connect people who are like-minded, with connecting people like-minded, start projects together using our app platform. And then that's how we're going to also connect these project founders to mentors as well. So it's a whole connecting app in the running.
Awesome stuff. And we look forward to seeing what Vanta and YNOT are going to be bringing to the world next. And so thank you all for sharing both your journeys and your dreams with us. And that's it for today's podcast, actually. We wanted to extend a big thank you to our 4 amazing speakers for their candid insights today. And we hope you learn an incredible amount as well about entrepreneurship and the challenges and joys that it brings. For more information about YNOT and Vanta, please refer to YNOT, that's YNOT.network, and Vanta, VANTA.com. Thank you so much, everyone, and take care. Thanks for listening. Stay tuned for more great stories coming your way. To end off today's podcast, here's Strawberry Generation's Afloat.